If you're a 2025 or 2026 bride-to-be, here are 7 essential wedding dress shopping tips that you absolutely need to know before getting started on your wedding dress shopping journey. Hey guys, my name is Erin Caravaggio. I'm the owner and creative director of Valencienne, which is a bespoke bridal salon in Toronto, Ontario. Since I work with brides every single day of my life, I live and breathe everything wedding dress shopping related. My number one tip is to start early. I know it might seem a little bit unnecessary to start the whole process more than a year in advance of the wedding date, but I can guarantee you that the earlier you start, the better you'll feel along the way because you won't feel any rush. A lot of brides come to us closer to the wedding date than they would have preferred, which for bespoke is not really a problem. We typically like 6 to 9 months for a custom dress, basically built from scratch, but in order to avoid all the stress, start early. Now, if you are thinking about the bespoke process, we tend to take a little bit less time than a more traditional bridal salon where you're limited to off-the-rack inventory. However, we also have to source fabrics. The sourcing isn't really the problem, but depending on shipping delays, we've had a lot of shipping delays over the past years, just with the circumstances in the world. And because we source a lot from overseas, whether it's Europe or the UK, there are a lot of different factors that can affect shipping. It's just how it is. Also, depending on whether or not the mill has the quantity of fabric that we would need in stock, sometimes we actually have to place orders and wait for the mill to create whatever it is that we're looking for. Right now, we're actually waiting for a silk and cotton to come in, which is such a beautiful fabric, but it can take a little bit of time to understand exactly what it is that you want. So give yourself extra time and you'll just feel so much better about it. My tip number 2, a lot of people set a budget before their wedding date, which I think is really great. However, when you are going through your budget, it's nice to have a number for all of the attire. If you're considering multiple looks, once you have a total number, whether that's a welcome party dress, a reception dress, obviously the ceremony dress, an engagement dress, all of the shoes, all of the accessories, it can really add up. I would suggest get that whole number and then you can sort of prioritize depending on which dress it is. I would also suggest this. Rank in priority sequence all of the different areas that you have to spend money on. So if invites are things that you might want to compromise on, this is actually something that I did when I was getting married. I prioritized my list that I knew I needed to spend on so that if I did need to shift some money around to accommodate what was highest priority, which for me was the dress, then I wanted to make sure that that was possible. So as much as I totally understand respecting a budget that is set in stone, I would also suggest giving yourself a little bit of flexibility, and ranking the items in your budget will do exactly that. And you know where you can sort of pull from just in case you find something that is slightly over budget, but that totally catches your heart. Tip number 3 is to keep an open mind. Now, I can totally empathize with wanting to just go to a bridal salon and find the perfect dress, take it off the rack, take it home that day, have it in your closet, and consider the job done. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, and keeping an open mind, I think, is very important throughout this process. Your dress just might not exist yet, and that is totally okay. If you're somebody that might not have ever considered the bespoke process, understand that it's the option to give you exactly what you want, no compromises at all. So although you might not understand a lot about our process, I actually just made a video on it. So if you're at all interested, I'll link to that video after this one, but definitely take a look at that because it really does explain start to finish exactly what our process is, and having that in your back pocket as either a last resort or a first option, which of course we love, will do nothing but relieve some of the stress that you might have going into the dress buying journey. Next tip, choose your shopping companions wisely. I see this time and time again where brides come in and things go one of 2 ways. Either they have the most supportive bridal party or entourage that they bring with them, very say yes to the dress, Randy Finoli of Me to Say Entourage, or it's the exact opposite. And it's like the bride is just so excited about one specific thing, whether it's a dress or a fabric or whatever part of the process it is, and the family or friends, whoever might be there supporting them, just is not fully behind them. And it really does break my heart because these brides have what they're looking for, and because they don't have the support, they don't necessarily get it, which it's not from a sales point of view, it's from a bride to bride point of view. Having been there before and having taken the most supportive people with me, it's just all I want for everybody coming into my bridal salon, but also any bridal salon. Too many opinions can cloud the vision, and it's really, really important to stick to that. Unlike obviously an off the rack experience where you're choosing from a select inventory that's there in front of you, when it comes to the bespoke process, it is incredibly personal. So it's really, really important for us to be able to do our job properly, that we can understand your vision. So I always tend to suggest to our brides to bring either one, maybe two people to the design appointment, to the initial consultation. That way we can really get a good idea of what the bride's vision is without any other external opinions getting in the way. And then later on, once we're either in the canvas, I actually suggest the first fabric fittings, which is the third appointment in. Bring people then, because the dress is starting to come to life. All of the decisions about the design and the embellishments have already been made, so there isn't really a lot of room for opinion. That being said, maybe bring your most opinionated friends closer to the end so that if there are minor changes that we make along the way, you're not swayed, especially if you are somebody that's easily persuaded or feels a little bit insecure and needs other people's reassurance. We will be that for you. So if you want to keep it to a smaller selection of people at the beginning, in my experience, that's been the best. This next tip actually comes from my production manager, Olivia, who I'm sure you'll see along the way, but it is a good one. It is to delete all of the photos of the dresses that you don't like, that you've tried on, as soon as you're done that appointment. A lot of the time we'll see 1,000,001 photos of dresses that brides have tried on in the past, which can be helpful when selecting her favorite bits and pieces of each dress to then combine them into one. There are albums upon albums or thousands of photos of different dresses and different angles of them, and a lot of the time the bride seems a little disheartened by seeing so many photos of herself that she didn't necessarily feel the best in. So deleting as many photos as you can along the process, not your favorite ones. Obviously it's nice to keep some mementos and look back later on about the dresses that you didn't choose and why. That can also be good content. I've seen a lot of people post about that. It can just be fun to look back. From our perspective, the more concise the better. So I also love a Pinterest board. This sort of goes along in the same vein where it's nice to have specific photos to reference. And even if you make a spreadsheet, I love a good spreadsheet, but if you have a column for the skirt that you like, another for the fabrics that catch your eye, another for the neckline, and then maybe a last one for the type of veil that you're looking for, that is so helpful for anybody, not just a bespoke designer like myself, but if you go into a more traditional bridal salon, it can also help that sales consultant really narrow down to the perfect dress if it already exists. My next tip is to prioritize comfort and functionality. This might seem obvious, but you need to be able to breathe and eat and live a full day in your dress. And we can come up with different ways to make sure that you have that comfort throughout the entire day without compromising the style. If you're looking for something that can transition with you throughout the day, some brides, for example, are really, really concerned about bloating because they don't want the look of their dress to be compromised by whether they've eaten or have had water throughout the day. And there are different things that we can do to be sure that the dress always looks its absolute best on the body. For example, a lace-up corset back is one that is so trending at the moment, and I can't tell you how many dresses we currently have on the go with that type of closure in the back. And one of the reasons why we really suggest it is because throughout the day it can be adjusted. If you're feeling at night when you're dancing that after the dress has sort of warmed to your body throughout the day that it's getting a little bit looser, you can just tighten it back up and it fits like a glove every single time. The opposite is also true. If you're feeling like you just ate and are in need of a little bit more room, which is totally normal, it's a body, then you should have the option to be able to adjust so that it's still comfortable, but that the aesthetic is never compromised. So a really beautiful lace-up back is an incredible way to be able to achieve both comfort and functionality, and it's also really nice because we can still adjust a lace-up corset back to be something that's bespoke. I had a bride in yesterday who's looking to reuse parts of her mom's dress. We love this idea. She's looking for something that's very modern, very crisp, loves the basque waist. With the lace-up back, that's just another way that we can incorporate one of her mom's dress elements. So one of our suggestions was actually to applique some of the lace from the mom's dress onto the laces, which would be beautiful. We keep a really crisp bodice, but then just have like a little accent of something very personalized. And it's just something that is more specific for the bride than is necessarily something to be noticed by everybody else. It's not the focal point of the dress, but that's the beauty with custom, is to make sure that it's those fine details that maybe not everybody would pick up on, that the bride knows just makes the dress even more unique and her own. My last tip is understand that bridal sizes differ from regular ready-to-wear clothing. There's really no vanity sizing in bridal. And in another video, I'll explain more about why this is, but essentially bridal uses a different set of sizing standards that are more traditional. They haven't been changed throughout the years, and they reflect differently than Zara or an H&M might, because they use traditional techniques, precise, and they are for a reason. But at the end of the day, it can make a bride feel a certain type of way if she's normally a certain size in ready-to-wear clothing. Then when she goes to a bridal salon, the numbers are significantly higher. It's not something that's personal, but I can understand, especially when you're trying things on in front of people, if there are a lot of numbers being referenced, it's an important thing to sort of know going in. If you do go the bespoke route, we basically don't use any of that because it is specifically made to your measurements. You can get away from all of the numbers and the sizing. Of course, we take your measurements at the beginning, but it is privately done, and it's not that you are being labeled as a certain size. I do think that you should know this going in, because if you are somebody that's affected by this or is on a weight loss journey and is really intently set on reaching a certain goal, then don't feel disheartened by the fact that you might be trying on dresses that are significantly higher in number. Just a good tip to note going in. The last thing I'll say, which I guess is a bonus tip, is do not over try dresses. There comes a certain point where bespoke might be the best way to go. Please try not to overwhelm yourself. We see this quite often where a bride has tried on literally hundreds of dresses and just feels so overwhelmed that she can't make a decision, and it takes the fun out of the whole thing. This is a process that you want to do once in your life, and it's important to get to enjoy it. I hope that these tips can be helpful. If you do want to know a little bit more about the bespoke process, like I mentioned before, be sure to watch this next video, and I'll see you very, very soon in our next one. Bye guys.